Welcome to the High Vibe Tribe weekly expert interview. My name is Liz Christia, and I am the founder of the Mind, Body, Spirit Network. And I bring you transformational teachers and healers and leaders from all over the world to share their expertise. And today it is no exception. And today's guest is a specialist in energy healing as it relates to the woman's energetic body. So this may not be of interest to you gentlemen out there, but women, for sure, listen in, because we're going to have some interesting conversations around the chakras and the woman's energy body and special issues that women need to be aware of. And in particular, any type of trauma. Lisa's going to talk about trauma in general as it relates to the energy body, as well as sexual trauma and recovery, and how working with the energy body can help you with that. Was that accurate there, Lisa?
That was great, Liz, and thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So let me give you a little bio about Lisa. Lisa Erickson is a chakra-based energy worker, a new writer. This is new for you, like a book anyway. You've been a blogger, but the book is new. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. And a teacher specializing in women's energetics and sexual trauma healing. Now, Lisa is a new member of the Mind, Body, Spirit Network, and she's launching a new course in January along with her book, which is called Chakra Empowerment for Women. And we'll get to that later in the conversation, but I want to just give you guys heads up that she's got something new and exciting coming up in January. And January is always a good time of the year to dive into something new and make some changes. So Lisa has trained in multiple energy healing modalities and is certified in both mindfulness meditation instruction and trauma sensitivity. Now, Lisa, we have a lot of energy healers in our posse. What type of modalities have you trained in?
I've mostly trained with Cindy Dale, who's a very well-known chakra worker. I've trained in Reiki and some faith healing, but primarily also I, as a meditator, have combined a lot of contemplative traditions with the chakra work that I do. And then I also study with a Tibetan Buddhist teacher named Lama Tsultrim Allione. She's actually a Western woman, but in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And she teaches a modality called feeding your demons that I also utilize, which is falls in the category of, I would say, somatic healing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We have a lot of interest in common there, my dear. So Lisa's also a member of the International Association of Meditation Instructors, the American Holistic Health Association, the Energy Medicine Practitioners Association, and the Breath Network, which is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting holistic healing for sexual trauma survivors. That's pretty interesting, Lisa. Could you tell us a little bit about that network? I'm sure some people may find it helpful.
Yeah, so the Breathe Network is a nonprofit that I'm a practitioner within, founded by a wonderful woman named Molly Boder Harris. And as an energy healer, you can be listed as a trauma sensitive provider, and they have all different modalities, healers from all different modalities listed on their site. So if you are particularly interested in working with trauma, and the Breathe Network is very focused on sexual trauma and sexual violence. So if you work with sexual trauma survivors, sexual violence survivors, childhood sexual abuse survivors, this is an organization that you want to look up, the breathenetwork.org, because they also have courses on becoming trauma sensitive. So you can go through their trauma sensitive course and apply that to whatever modality you work within.
Okay. Now, is it thebreathenetwork.org with T-H-E? Yes. Okay. Yes, and breathe is B-R-E-A-T-H-E. I didn't quite.
Yes, I know. I always got that wrong first. First, it's breathe instead of breath. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So everyone know, I will put that on the video so you can see it, and in links below wherever you're watching or listening to this. The Breathe Network is certainly a worthy organization. Now, while we're on the topic here of trauma, does trauma affect the body or the energy body regardless of the type, or does different types of trauma affect different areas of the body?
Well, there's certain ways that trauma tends to impact our relationship to both our physical body and our subtle body that are kind of across all forms of trauma. Okay. We hear this fight, flight, or freeze response, right? That this is when we experience trauma or great fear. we have the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? And what really happens in a traumatic experience is that at some level, you can't integrate that experience into your psyche. And so it creates, from a psychological level, a set of unconscious triggers and emotions that haven't been fully integrated. And then you have triggers in your environment that may trigger, traumatic responses or physical symptoms. On the energy body level, it often triggers a kind of disassociation from the lower chakras. That's kind of the main thing that I see. It's really like there is a fear of being fully present in the body. You really find this in sexual trauma survivors, but it's pretty standard across all trauma responses. And so one of the main things that you work with on the energy body level is reconnecting those lower body chakras with the physical body, because the energy body is that interface between our physical body, our mind, and our spirit. So if that physical level is kind of if that relationship between the energy body and the physical body isn't strong, for one thing, what can happen is that you're doing a lot of meditation and modalities and visualizations and things that should be helping your health, and they're not, because there isn't this link between the subtle body and the physical body. So you kind of have to get that foundation built first. So that's kind of one, we can go into it more deeply, but that's one thing that is across all trauma that working with your energy body is very helpful for.
Lisa, I wish I'd known this 15 years ago. I'll tell you that right now.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced some traumatic events, and I knew they were, and I knew there's no way what I went through didn't affect me, and I didn't realize that. I knew my lower chakras were I was not grounded. And it's interesting to hear you say this. And for listeners and viewers, if you've had trauma and you haven't addressed it, which I haven't, well, I have, but not with all this deeper understanding. Don't go 15 years without figuring it out. Take it from me.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm glad to be hearing this today, Lisa, and I'm sure others are as well. So,
well, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add something, because your network and most of the people listening are very spiritually inclined, right? So they probably already are practicing a lot of mind-body modalities and meditation, etc. And I have a lot of clients like that. That's who tends to be drawn to my work. So it can be confusing to people, because they're like, I'm doing all this stuff I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And why isn't it helping? And it's because it can actually become dissociative, right? You're doing the visualizations in your head. You've gotten really good at meditating and you feel really peaceful in your meditation. And then as soon as you stand up, it's gone. There isn't this link. And that's very often because this subtle body, lower chakra, kind of disturbance that needs to be healed.
Okay. Now, I think it's come across my other people that I've spoken to that do similar type of work have noticed that empathic individuals, which are probably likely some of your clients, tend to have lower chakra issues, right? Or all of us have lower chakra issues we're all up in our heads.
Yes.
Many of us, right? Do you find that to be the case with most people, regardless of?
Yeah, I think you have a few levels to it. We have a cultural, especially in the West, kind of disassociation in a way. It's odd though, because we put a lot of emphasis on exercise. So in that sense, we're very much about the body, and we have all these projections of the perfect body, but that's really about body image, which is different from embodiment, right? So you can actually work out a lot, but relate to your body more from the perspective of how it looks, which is not actually being present in your body, if that makes sense, right?
Yes. Yep.
So I think, and then in the West, we've always had a problem with sexuality, which is also linked to the lower chakras, right? I mean, we just cannot handle it. So we're still figuring that out. So I do think culturally, you have a lot of people that are disconnected from their lower chakras. Also nature, right? We're increasingly disconnected from nature, which is linked to our lower chakras. But then empaths in particular, they have a lot of activity in their upper chakras. I find a lot of empaths have a traumatic history. One of the byproducts of trauma, especially childhood trauma, can be that you actually developed your intuition very strongly because you were walking into a difficult household as a child, and you develop the ability to sense, what's it like in here today? What do I have to do to keep myself safe? So in fact, a lot of empaths had problematic childhood home lives that in fact developed their intuition but may have left them unable to boundary themselves properly, right?
Right.
So they're very observant intuitively, but don't have that sense of being able to boundary themselves. And so that is also linked to linking up with those lower chakras as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, long-winded answer, but
no,
yes.
No, it's a good one. It's important stuff. And I'm personally glad to be hearing this because I'm putting the pieces together, but then I notice when the perfect guests come and I get a ton of benefit out of it. So
good.
Not to be selfish, but there's plenty of us out there that need this type of awareness.
Yeah.
So you're also the creator of a popular Daily Ohm course. Now, Daily Ohm is a blog site, or what is the Daily Ohm?
No, they're really a course site, self-paced video course site. And they have thousands of courses on there that people take where it's pre-recorded, right? Like that. Yeah.
So it's evergreen is what it's called in the online world.
Yeah.
Okay. So your course there is called Awakening Your Feminine Chakras. Mm-hmm. And you also do blogs on energetics and spirituality on your long-standing blog, Mommy Mystic. Is that mommymystic.com, Lisa?
It is, yes. And none of my kids call me mommy anymore, but they did at the time it was created. So
that's really cute. Are you still doing that?
I still blog there, yes.
Okay.
But all the kids are teenagers, so none of them call me mommy anymore.
Well, that's good. They hopefully are grounded in their lower chakras and they're like, I'm not going to call you mommy. All right. So, Lisa, how did you get into the work that you're into? Mm-hmm. Energy healing in general.
Yeah, really, for me, it started out with a meditation practice. In college, I was exposed to meditation. So this is over 30 years ago now. And I studied with a teacher for many years that taught chakra and Kundalini meditation. But I was actually working in the technology sector. I was not it was a very different career. I worked in technology. And then when I became a meditation teacher, I was teaching in a corporate environment, but I was also studying energy healing. And I would say that as soon as there's many forms of meditation, but as soon as I was exposed to chakra and Kundalini meditation, for me, it was the teachings resonated with what I'd been experiencing my whole life. I experienced the world energetically, and I just had never known that. So that was the right meditation modality for me. And then from there, it was a natural path into studying energy healing. And, there's many forms of energy healing, but very specifically chakra-based energy healing.
Okay.
And then it kind of evolved. Women's energetics really evolved from there out of the birth of my first child and some of my experiences after that.
Oh, okay. So we're going to talk about some of those issues as we move along here. So when did you kind of transition into just focusing on women's energetics? Did you work with men and women for a while and then you found your calling?
Yeah. Well, and I still do have male clients. But, because I advertise myself in terms of women's energetics, it's more women, and it's usually women saying, will you also work with my friend?
Oh, yeah.
I actually do have probably 25% male clients, and I joke that my next book is going to be for men, chakra empowerment for men. So we'll see. Some of them are kind of upset that I didn't write one for them too.
I mean, men have chakra issues as well.
Oh, of course. Yes. And in this culture, many. Yeah.
Okay. And well, in case a man is listening here today, is there a particular issue that's predominant in men in the chakras?
Well, I think for men, it's about developing more flow, and their second chakra is often shut down for different reasons than a woman, because it's linked to the emotions. So for women, it's often kind of shut down in terms of sexual energy or shame around sexuality. For men, it's often shut down more around emotions, right? They are conditioned not to relate to their emotions in the same way. And it's so interesting because of my 3 kids, 2 of them are twins, boy-girl twins, teenagers now. And it's interesting really to see how gendered our conditioning still is. Even living in a progressive environment where I live, their conditioning around emotions is still so gendered in terms of what is appropriate and what's not. And that really impacts men a lot.
So it's kind of interesting that, I've met another healer who said the biggest problem she sees is in the second chakra for most everybody. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that men and women have different issues and how we can't come together in that same area. Mm-hmm. So it's like the world needs to heal that together, it seems. All right, you got some work to do, Missy.
Yeah.
All right.
I would say that is what I really feel is the heart of the work.
Oh, okay, cool. So for someone who's brand new to the whole idea of energy work, energy bodies, chakras, how would you describe it for someone who is just totally new to all this?
Yeah. Well, our energy body is this intermediary layer between our physical body and our mind and our spirit. So in fact, even if you don't think in terms of an energy body, you're working with it all the time in terms of if you do, say, affirmations for positive thinking. When you do that, it does shift you vibrationally. That impacts you at a cellular level. There's increasing research that is showing the way that link occurs, right? You can also work directly at the energy body level. There's the meridians, there's chakras, there's different modalities, ways you can work with them. I work primarily with the chakras, which are energy centers. There's different mappings. The mapping most people come across in the West is this 7 chakra mapping from your spine up to your crown. And each one is linked to different psychological functions, different organs in the body, different glands. And by focusing on them, you're bringing a different vibration, different emotions into both your body and your psyche. And you're also removing or kind of deconstructing blocks that may be linked to both physical issues and psychological issues or blocks in that area of the chakra system.
Now, Lisa, when you work with someone, do you have like a third eye intuitive view, or how do you see it, or do you feel it, or how do you work with someone's chakras?
Yeah. And I call myself an energy worker because I'm not hands-on anymore. I work primarily by Zoom and actually I prefer phone. I prefer for there to not even be a visual. So we're connecting completely energetically, intuitively.
Oh.
And I like it to be collaborative. I do get a viewpoint of their body, of their energy body as they're speaking about whatever issue they've come to me for. But I feel that it's extremely important that people develop the ability to see and find it for themselves, right? And that is ultimately empowering to someone. So I'll ask, okay, you're describing this difficult, these triggers that you're having, and I'll ask them to go into a memory when it occurred, a simple, they felt very angry or anxious, or a certain memory, and go into where they felt it in their body. And try to help develop that somatic awareness of where is it in your body, what is it like, and from there you can enter into the energy body. And so that's how I tend to work. And it's interesting because sometimes they'll say they feel it exactly where I see it, and sometimes they won't. And then we explore that. Is what they're feeling in their body kind of a secondary layer, or are they disconnected from what they're really feeling? And you have to kind of work at that a little bit. So I do work both visually what I see, but I also am going back and forth with questions to get them down into their energy body and trying to experience it.
Okay. It's good. A point to make here is that you want to get people engaged with the process as opposed to just, wave your hand and make me feel better.
Exactly.
Right.
It often doesn't take if you do that. I mean, you
right.
might be capable of doing that, but people need the psychological shift as well for the healing to take. Right. So especially with the kind of work that I do, so that collaborative process is really important.
Yeah. So you call your work women's energetics. Mm-hmm. So what exactly is that, and what are the differences in men's and women's energy bodies?
Yeah. Well, most of the chakra teachings that have come down to us, like many teachings across many different modalities, primarily came down through male lineages. But in fact, there have always been female teachings. And if you go back into, say, tantric texts, if you go back into various shamanic or energy medicine texts, there almost always are variations in the chakras that are taught, especially at certain life transits like menstruation, pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause. Our energy body shifts just like our physical body does. And it's a spectrum, because as we now know, gender is fluid, right? It's not simply male, female. People identify in different ways. But for people who identify primarily as female, the mapping that I work with will usually be more helpful for them. And the main difference is that more masculine energy bodies tend to be anchored in the root chakra, which is what we're traditionally taught. And female energy bodies tend to be more anchored in the second chakra, which I work with as anchored in the pelvis. Some systems have it higher or lower. you know, it's really the whole idea of womb energy, womb wisdom, regardless of whether it has nothing to do with having children. It simply has to do with the chakras are linked into our physical body. And with the main, sorry, I've got a cat and dog thing going on over here.
Well, welcome, kitty cats.
Quiet. Yeah, they've been so quiet all afternoon.
They can come up. They're nice.
They're all joining me.
We want them part of it all.
They want to be part of it. Yeah, so it's really about working with, again, that second chakra as being the seat of the feminine energy body. And then there's a whole cascade of differences that happens because the energy body is anchored in a different spot.
Between men and women, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Women tend to be more absorbent energetically because the second chakra, its default is receptive. Like the even numbered chakras, the second, the heart, and the third eye are more receptive. They're default. They're more yin. And the others are more yang or emanating by default. They both receive and emanate, but they each have kind of a default setting. So for men, their energy body tends to be more solid, less absorbent, more rigid, which is sometimes what you need to work on, right, with men. Women, it tends to be by default more open, more absorbent. So you really need to work on boundaries a lot of the time. And then the issues related to link to the second chakra, sensuality, sexuality, creativity, flow, all of these sort of things. Really, women's power tends to be linked in to owning those powers and releasing any blocks related to them, even more than a man's.
Now, is the second chakra related to your ability to receive financially as well, or is that a different chakra?
Really, both the root and the sacral. The sacral has a lot to do with inspiration when you're manifesting, and the root has a lot to do with being able to really make it happen. But if you think about birthing, physical birthing of a baby, it's, you know, your womb is second chakra, but the vagina is root chakra, right? And you need both. You need the nurturing and the gestation, and that's the second chakra. And then the actual making it manifest in the world, those final steps is the root chakra. So it's both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the ways energy work can particularly benefit women?
Yeah. Well, some of the things that we've talked about because of right now we're in this big shift. We're in this whole Me Too movement where we're becoming more and more aware of the subtler ways, not many cases, not so subtle, but also the subtler ways that women's power is repressed on a social level and the denigration and all of these patterns and how that impacts women, right? And you talked about how this healing that needs to take place for both men and women on the second chakra level, it's really like this whole shift that has to happen. But on some unconscious level, we've internalized these negative messages around being a woman and a woman of power. And that has to be healed. And a lot of that has to do with healing the second chakra. I think a lot of the messages are that it's about women. Well, and there's been a lot of commentary about this in various feminist, in terms of feminism and the phases of feminism. There was a lot of focus on women taking their place within a man's world, right? Which was very important. But then what happened is that didn't really address the denigration of traditionally feminine energies. Like there hasn't been as much promotion of men owning their feminine energy, right? There hasn't been a true rebalancing, right? No. So yeah, exactly. So that's really what working at the second chakra level is about. And then there's just such a phenomenal number of women who have experienced some form of sexual trauma, abuse, assault, harassment. And to the extent that causes a constriction at the second chakra level, because that's the anchor of a woman's energy body, it often impacts her whole relationship to her own power.
Good to know. While we're on the topic of the second chakra, since most of us, it's a big problem, is there a simple kind of exercise that we could do to address that?
Yeah, my favorite exercise or guided, you can call it a meditation, it's really more than that, it's real energy work, is called the Sacred Lotus. And it's really visualizing low in your pelvis, really at hip level, a beautiful flower, a lotus, if you know what that looks like, made of light facing upward. This to me is really representative of the feminine energy body. If someone's familiar with the chakras, you may be familiar with a metaphor that's often used for the chakra system is of a snake coiled at the root chakra in Kundalini teachings. And it said, as you meditate and work with the chakras, this snake rises up like a cobra. And you'll see these pictures of someone with a meditating Buddha with a cobra over his head, because snake charmers will play this tune in India, and a snake will rise from a coil. It will rise up. So that's how it's often, that's the traditional image. But that's really a very male image. The female image, because we're anchored in our second chakra, is more like this open lotus in the pelvis with roots down in the mud, just like a lotus has roots that go all the way down, and then light emanating upward through the entire rest of the chakra system. Oh. So that to me is like just meditating on that image and really trying to feel that light down in your pelvis emanating upwards is one of the best things that you can do. And would you believe that this cat is named Lotus, and she heard her name and she's decided to.
That's too precious.
She's a very social cat too. She never does this. Yeah,
that's too, well, she knows she's getting some energy healing going on here.
Apparently.
They know all about it. Like, hey, I could use some of this good mojo.
That's why I don't let them into the room where I normally do sessions. But anyway,
that's okay. We're glad to have them. I've got 3 all around me, so it's the kennel day at the High Vibe Tribe.
Exactly.
So, Lisa, any chance you have a guided meditation on the second chakra that you share with people, or?
Well, I can guide
for that matter.
Sacred Lotus visualization right now. I guide people through that all the time. Did you want to do it now or no?
No. I was just curious if you had something that someone could listen to, because some people aren't visual.
Yeah. You know what? I do have both the Daily Ohm Course, and then in the book, that Chakra Empowerment for Women, which we'll get to, that just came out. What I've done is on the website for that book, I have put recordings of the activation processes.
Oh, good.
In that book. And, I did that. That's always, people are like, why are you giving that away for free? People could just, but you really need the images from the book. So I'm trusting the honor system that people will buy the book too in order to use the recordings.
So, I mean, it's like worth it.
Yeah.
You know, so congratulations on your book. It just came out last week.
Yeah. Official publication was Sunday. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And it's Chakra Empowerment for Women.
Yes, and it has a long subtitle that I can't remember from Llewellyn Publishing.
Shoot, I should have wrote it down for you.
It's like self-guided techniques for healing trauma, owning your power, and overall balance, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, all of those things are good. All right, now we've got the phones ringing and the dogs barking over here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about our energy body during pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause. That's a pretty significant topic that many need to hear about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's going on there?
Well, and this is one of the main reasons I focus on women's energetics, is helping women really own their bodily processes in a way that's powerful. They really were considered, menstruation and everything that you just named were considered sacred, right, in many cultures. And there's many energy body teachings on them. But in today's culture, we tend to view them as medical events. Menstruation and menopause, we tend to view as, bad medical events or difficult things in our lives, and a pain, all these things, as opposed to owning that there's a power to them. And I can't necessarily get into all the teachings, but essentially the level at which your energy body links to your physical body changes, and especially the second chakra shifts, just like your physical body does at each of these. So for example, in menstruation, your energy body becomes more, so it's like the flower kind of closes up like this coming into your period, and then it opens back up. You're at kind of your most glowing at the peak of ovulation, right? And they've done chemical measurements on this in terms of people's charisma. It's biological, right? It's part of it. But there's an energy cycle to that you can actually use, right? It's actually a sacred time. And then in pregnancy, your second chakra is opening throughout that time. It's tremendous amount of spiritual energy coming in from your second chakra, because it is the spiritual doorway for birth, right? There's not just a physical doorway, there's a spiritual. In perimenopause, then we tend to have there's all this other stuff that goes on that really has to do with clearing karmas in preparation for entering your wisdom years, for coming into your full power as a healer, sorceress, I mean, witch, whatever word you want to use, right? And it is a very powerful energetic process. We tend as we age to get more rigid, and actually the invitation is to become much more bigger and more fluid energetically when you are no longer tied to that monthly cycle. It's like this whole other level of you can open up. And so that's really the teachings that you find on the female energy body. It is very linked to working with your sacral chakra in a different way.
I love that invitation to open up and be free.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard it put that way before. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, and we're all living longer. So there's going to be more of us that are, I just went through menopause. There's going to be more of us living half of our lives potentially post-menopause. That never happened before, right? Right. Yeah.
Well, I've already decided, many things are a mindset. And I already decided menopause is a non-issue for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows up, whatever. Okay. And same with aging. It's like aging is a non-issue. I'm like, I'm not going to forget that, throw it away. And I have like a new reset point. I'm like, I'm going to live as if I'm going to live to be 200. Yeah. And then the body has to adapt. It's like, all right, if we're going to be here till 200 body, let's adapt.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And if you relate to aging and menopause that way, I mean, the research shows it impacts you, right? You do stay younger, right? It is psychological. Yeah. And I would say beyond even menopause being a non-issue, it actually being this incredible blossoming into a new level of power.
Nice.
Like it's almost like your identification is shifting from the physical, the purely physical, which you're tied to pre-menopause with this cycle, to the energetic. You're no longer tied to that, right?
Oh, nice.
So there's even deeper awareness into the energetic and spiritual planes.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how can we work with the chakras for stress reduction, manifesting, or healing?
Okay.
I have a great trick, but I want to see what your tricks are first.
Yeah. Stress reduction, normally it depends on the person. It has to do with heart and root. It has to do with, there's many aspects to the heart, but one aspect of the heart is equanimity and just being able to find the still point right in the center there, at which you let go of judgments, both self-judgments and judgments of whatever is happening to you as either good or bad. And then from that place, wisdom can arise, right? Then the root chakra is about feeling safe, because stress is often really a manifestation of feeling threatened in some way, right? Yeah. And especially if you have any trauma in your background, then any stressful situation gets magnified, because essentially it triggers the feeling of not being safe. So really working with that root chakra to feel safe in the body is really key. So I think heart and root for me are really the key to stress reduction.
And is there a particular exercise that addresses that?
Yeah, well, I have what's called the root bowl in the book, which is an image that I really like, or meditation, where you are focusing on the earth emanating up, kind of supportive energy, and holding you in a bowl, like emanating this bowl up into your root chakra that you're sitting in, and this feeling of being kind of held.
Nice.
Yeah, and that really can help generate those feelings.
Okay, so goodies in the book, you guys, to look forward to. Chakra empowerment for women. Okay, so I do want to share my little stress reduction trick for the chakras.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it yesterday with somebody, and I was in such heavenly bliss, I couldn't respond to what we were talking about. But it's this, great. Hand mudra.
Oh.
Are you familiar with hand mudras, Lisa?
Yes. Yeah.
So this one balances all the chakras.
Yeah.
And I noticed when I just hold it on my lap, I immediately all the chakras start spinning, and I'm just like,
that's great.
Not available anymore.
Yeah.
So I will not hold that, but it's a great little trick.
It is, and it's embodied. That's why I love mudras, because they are right in the body, right?
Yeah. So yes.
Yeah. When I didn't talk about manifesting, I can talk more about that if you want.
Well, that's a fun topic.
Okay.
That's a good one we all care about.
Okay. Yeah, I think, from the chakra perspective, just quickly, the spiritual pathway is upward. Like we talk about bringing the energy up from the root into the crown. If you study formal Kundalini meditation, that's what you're attempting to do in an attempt to open the crown, and you experience then different divine insights, samadhis they're sometimes called, or you might be focused on the heart if it's a devotional path. The manifesting path is downward, right? It's like you have if it's, you have a vision, you have an idea, which is really up here in the third eye. Beyond that, if you haven't, I love Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. I don't know if you've read that book, but
Yes.
yeah, just this whole idea, like something, sometimes you get an idea and it just feels like it's getting handed to you, right?
Right.
It's like the crown chakra, right? Then the idea level is the third eye. Then your ability to talk about it is the throat. And that's when you start interacting with other people around it. The heart is then, we're moving downward, is your ability to then really work with others, interact with others, attract into your life the people that can help you manifest it. Then the navel is the plan, right? And the really detailed, everything you need, that ability to organize, come up with a really grounded plan. Then the sacral is what that womb energy. It is the creation, gestation phase when you're working hard, but it's the inspiration that keeps you going. You're executing all the steps. And then the root chakra is you're making it real. And so you have to have all of that all the way down. You have a lot of people, they have a lot of ideas and they can't ever birth it, right? Or you have people they're really good at birthing someone else's ideas. They're really good lower chakra, but they don't have their own. And that's, it's really about getting the whole thing working.
Oh, that's a great visual on that.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of a creative person, but so the second chakra again could interfere with the ability to bring that into manifestation, right?
Yeah.
And what's going on there? That's like, what's the energy block there that?
Yeah. And that's going to be more individual to the person. Often it's shame with the second chakra if there is any unworthiness, right? These patterns of feeling undeserving, unworthiness, they have echoes in the heart and throughout the whole subtle body, but I find they're very often in women rooted in the second chakra. Any conditioning around femalehood being a liability. And even the most liberated woman, the woman who's the most liberated in her mind, can still be holding some of these conditioned patterns deeply in her energy body and still have things to release in that way. So that's more often what holds someone back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So listen up, gang. Second chakra, we all need to take a look at. Women, for sure. Okay. So let's talk about sexual trauma again and how it impacts us energetically, or trauma in general. Is there a difference? Is trauma, or, I know I asked that before, but let's ask it again.
Yeah, I think trauma is trauma in certain ways, in terms of the disconnection from the lower chakra that tends to happen, the fear, flight, or fear response and how it impacts the body. But sexual trauma is unique. Sexual trauma does impact both men and women, but women disproportionately by quite a large margin. And so it really is kind of a scourge on our society in a way when you start talking about as many as 1 out of 5 American women report experiencing some form of abuse, and even higher when you use the word harassment instead of abuse or assault. So it's a big number. And then sexual trauma really impacts the second chakra in women a lot. It really impacts because of the victim blaming that we've traditionally had around it, the not being believed at times, and a lot of other factors. It really can cause someone to relate to their femaleness as a liability. A liability. And that impacts you in many different ways. To relate to your body as a liability in some way. So there's all these different impacts, and because that second chakra is the root of the female energy body, if those kind of conditioned patterns have set in, they really are blocking, in a way, the heart of your power. The heart of your power.
He almost looks like just a silhouette. He's so dark. He's almost like a puppet shadow, because I can't see the detail. Oh my God, it's really cute.
He needs a haircut, that's for sure.
What a beautiful dog. What's his name?
Griffin.
I love it.
You're meeting them all today.
Okay, good. So Lisa, how can energy work benefit sexual trauma survivors? Like, how does that work?
Mm-hmm. I think that it really, well, first of all, I will say, and this is part of the mandate of the Breathe Network, this recognition that whatever you're healing from, and especially in the case of sexual trauma, what is going to work for someone is very individual. and to not feel like there's something wrong with you if one modality doesn't work and another does, because that is something that can really set in for trauma survivors. The belief that nothing will work. I've tried this, I've tried that, nothing will work. And to just keep looking, because finding that right fit is key. So I want to put that out there first, because I don't want to say, oh, this approach is going to work for everybody. It's right for some people. It's right generally for people who are very empathic, very energetically sensitive. So they already are feeling as if their energy body is impacted, and they really want to work at that second chakra level to release limiting emotional patterns that were the result of their second chakra, and really experience embodiment, really experience especially the root and second chakra as linked into the physical body, and inhabit, through that work, learn to inhabit their body in a new way, in a fuller way.
Okay. So you talk about trauma sensitivity. Are people susceptible to trauma? Is there a sensitivity, or what are you talking about there?
Yeah, no, I'm talking more for healers working in a trauma sensitive way.
Okay.
And I think it's not covered in, like a therapist will go through training as to how to be trauma sensitive in the way that you work, right?
Yeah.
It's not covered in a lot of energy healing modality training programs. So this is something there's a lot more research on. A lot of it has come out of the yoga community. Did you see my
That was bravo. That was a great leap. Okay. Good going, Lotus. Okay. Oh my God. For you listeners, Lisa's cat is jumping behind over the dog. And they're both adorable and getting in on this juicy conversation. I love it.
Yeah. So it's really about taking the research that's come out of a lot of individuals that are working in the yoga community, including with war veterans, military veterans in trauma, and meditation and mindfulness community. A lot of research that's been done on how trauma impacts the body, bringing some of that trauma sensitivity into the way that energy healers and people in contemplative traditions teach and work. Because, for example, some of the things, we make a lot of assumptions about what is relaxing. We may think dim lighting and incense and a quiet closed door. These are relaxing. Well, you know what? A lot of that stuff could be extremely triggering for someone, right? So being trauma sensitive, there's a lot to it. And this is where going to that Breathe Network site can be really interesting, because they have a lot of information on this. But really the number one factor is thinking in terms of choice, making no assumptions about what your client or patient might find comfortable, and really making it a dialogue around the environment, around the work that you're doing. This is what I'd like to do with you. Does that sound okay? Giving them the option to stop at any point. Never sort of just being the expert and saying, lay back, let me do this to you, right? That's extremely triggering. It's not relaxing.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. So this is it. So that's really what I meant by trauma sensitivity. And I think it's really important. Yeah.
Yes, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So what other recommendations do you have for someone new to energy-based work? Like what would you recommend what would be the starter kit to getting in on experiencing this or understanding it more?
I'm sorry, you cut out for just a second. Understanding energy work or trauma sensitivity?
Energy work in general. If you're introducing energy, if someone's new to all of this, where's a great place to start? Or even, where would you start in the experience of it, or even in the understanding of it?
Yeah. I think the first place that I always like to start with people, because it is the chakra that most people tend to experience the most, is the heart. Just very gently putting your hands on your chest, visualizing or feeling a light there, imagining someone that you feel great affection for, someone you care about, and feeling that warmth in your chest. Most people will respond to that. Like if you say, picture someone you want to hug, that feeling of wanting to hug them, they'll say, oh, I feel a tingle here. Be like, that's your heart chakra, right? This is the way you start to relate to your chakras. It's really a feeling in your body. You can also do color visualizations and all that. I find the chakras to be a great entrance point. There are a lot of great resources around the meridians too, but I think the chakras are very accessible because there's so many different ways you can work with them. Color, crystals, meditations, mantras, mudras. So there's a lot of access points, and we all learn in different ways.
Right.
So I think that's why they're a great entrance point.
Which just reminds me, I had a sound healer on last week, and there's sounds for every chakra. There's just a universal sound for each one of them. So whether you're visual, audio, right, like you're pointing out,
exactly,
there's ways to work with the chakras in many ways. And I happen to do a chakra yoga class, which is very helpful.
Yes.
I'm really starting to understand the benefit of yoga as a present, being in the body presence, doing hatha yoga or holding a pose that's helping to strengthen that root chakra.
That's right.
So it was interesting to go through the course and do each one and how she presents the class from the viewpoint of what chakra we're working on, root. I stay in the bottom three mostly.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's how yoga developed, right? It actually developed as this precursor to meditation. So you would do your yoga practice. It's like you're working at that physical and subtle body level, and you're getting everything smoothed out and aligned. And then you would move into sitting meditation, the ancient yogis. And then you'd be working with bringing the Kundalini up at the interface between the chakras and the spiritual body. So you have these different levels, right, that you're working with.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. Great. Your book just got published. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long did it take for you to write? Well, that could be a lifetime, really. But
I honestly, yes, because this one was, it grew out of work that I'd been doing in workshops and clients, etc. And I wanted to put it together in a package that would be accessible to people that I wasn't reaching, right? Or that wanted to work on their own. That's really the point of it.
Yeah.
So in a way, it is the accumulation of 15 years of my client practice, but the actual writing was several months.
Well, that's not so bad.
No, it wasn't.
That's good.
A lot of material. Yeah.
Did you just decide one day I'm going to sit down and write this finally, or what?
Yes, and the key word is finally, because it had been hanging out there for quite a long time. It was a combination of my kids being at the right age, right, and things like that for me to have more freedom in my day.
Okay, so tell us about the book, Chakra Empowerment for Women.
Yeah.
What are you trying to share there?
Yeah, there's really three main, I think, aspects of the book. It's organized around 12 chakra tools. The first 7 each relate to the 7 main core chakras that we are familiar with. And then the other 5 are multi-chakra tools. They each involve more than one chakra. So they're not strictly speaking chakra meditations. I love chakra meditation, but in chakra meditation, you're really kind of going into a chakra. I was more focused on how can we use the energies of our chakras in daily life? Like if you need root chakra energy in the moment, how do you develop the ability to just get it? Oh. So the activations are about, you do have to practice them first in a more meditative setting. And then you take a kind of snapshot memory that you can use to access that energy when you need it. And I think in today's world where we all tend to be overstimulated, especially energetically and especially empaths, this ability to activate chakra energy in your daily life when you need it is really valuable. So that's how the book is organized. And then in each chapter, I have put a section on women's energetics, how that chakra in particular tends to be the most impacted for women, the most obstructed, and what you can do to work on liberating it, healing it. And then also a section on sexual trauma healing, how that particular chakra tends to be impacted the most by sexual trauma, and how you can work with that particular tool of that chapter to help heal. So it's got kind of this activation piece, the women's energetic piece, and the sexual trauma healing piece.
Great. Now you're kind of turning this into a course.
Yeah.
But not. Yes and no. They're going to work together, right?
Yeah. You can definitely do the book completely on your own. And I've made recordings, my voice recording of the activation processes. As I've said, I've put that on the book website. But I wanted to offer people the opportunity to go deeper with the material for someone who really wants to experience the healing and work with each one intensely for a week or two in a supported environment, right? It's like having a personal trainer. So we will work through every 2 weeks, 2 tools, and you kind of have assignments and things like that so that you can go deeper with the material over the course of the 7 classes that we do. And there's a private forum and all of that. And then I'm going to do breakout sessions. For those that are interested in sexual trauma, we'll have a breakout on that. For people interested in menopause, we'll have a breakout on that. because I work with a lot of healers myself, I may start a breakout on, how would you work with this with clients in case people want to do that. All of these different breakouts will be part of the course.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So your first round of this is going to be live.
Yes.
7 modules every other week. So it's going to be a 14-week span, essentially, right?
Yes.
And is it like an hour long or 2 hours together or every other week, or how is it working?
It's 2 hours every other week. And it's done through Zoom, which of course you can call into by phone or video. And then of course it's recorded so that if you can't attend the live course, you watch or listen to it whenever you're able to that week.
Okay.
When it's posted in the private name forum.
Cool. And it's starting in what's the date in January, Lisa?
January 14th.
Okay, of 2020.
Yes.
A
month away.
This interview will live, for however long it lives.
That's right. So you have to say 2020. Yeah.
2020. And then likely, Lisa, it'll turn into an evergreen course, do you think?
That is my hope. Absolutely.
Okay. So listeners and viewers, you can find, I'll have links to all of this below the video, the blog, wherever you're listening. And if you're on a podcast, you're going to want to go to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/interview-Lisa-Erickson, ERIKSON.
CKSON.
Oh, it is CK.
Yeah. And I think you have it right on your site. So yeah.
I thought I was spelling it wrong. And I'm like, I wanted to spell it CK. Then I'm like, no, that's not right. Okay. Erickson, ERIKSON. So I'll spell this out on the video so you guys can see it. And this page will have everything that Lisa's is up to. We'll keep it up to date. So as things change or she adds new courses or whatever, you'll always be able to find her there. Otherwise, her own website is your name, right, Lisa? One of them.
Yeah. Well, the book one is Chakra Empowerment for Women. That's probably the best one. The blog is Mommy Mystic. No, none of them are my name, actually. But
you don't have a name website? Oh, I thought you did. Never mind.
My client site is Enlightened Energetics. So they're all linked to each other. So if you make it to one, you'll find the others.
Okay. And I'm sure the website is in your book.
Yeah.
Okay. So buy the book, you guys.
Yes. And review it. I'm learning
yes,
as I make this transition to book. Yeah. Reviews are very important. So.
Okay. And I have to point out, for those of you who have never done live group kind of healing things, it's pretty powerful. Mm-hmm. Any type of group healing work, Lisa, could you kind of describe what you've experienced in your life doing this?
Yeah. And really, I've done a lot of sexual trauma survivor teleseminars and these kind of seminars. And we start visualizing all of us in a circle, even if you're listening by recording later. I always say we're creating this space outside of time and space, right? Create this circle of light bodies, of just feminine light bodies in a circle. And people have reported how powerful just that image is at the start of the class. It's that power, we're all connected anyway. And when we bring that together in an intentional way, it's exponential, the benefit to everyone who participates.
Yeah. I've done a few group webinars where we do all sorts of healing stuff, and it's powerful. And people always respond like, oh my God, that was powerful. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and expertise on the chakra system, women's energetics, and importantly, sexual trauma in general, or any type of trauma and how it affects your lower chakras.
Yeah.
Don't wait for 15 years like I did to get it resolved, or try to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
But I've, done a fair amount.
Thank you, Liz, for having me and for sharing your own wisdom.
My pleasure.
That's how we all grow. Yeah.
So listeners and viewers, if you're enjoying what we're doing here, please subscribe to our podcast at highvibetriberadio.com. Or if you prefer to see our lovely faces on YouTube, you can find us at highvibetribetv.com. And again, if you want to connect with Lisa in her upcoming course, I think it's going to be awesome. You can connect with that at the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/chakra-empowerment-women. That's where you can sign up for the course in January. Lisa, thank you again. And Lotus is asleep behind you. She's probably...
Oh, yeah, all the pets are completely quiet now, as yours are too, right?
Griffin is out like a light.
We're all up.
So nice to have our pets with us today.
Thank you, Liz.
Listeners and viewers, thank you so much. We'll see you again next week.